Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 3 of Reroll. I am your host, MisterBaz, and as promised, we're taking a look at the very first dungeon available to the Defiant in Rift. Yes, this is the Iron Tomb, a wonderful underground location filled with undead and cultist members of the Endless Cult. Yes, it is a great place to visit on vacations and whenever you want to take a nice relaxing stroll through death. And probably a very putrid smell if I had to really take a guess at it. Anyways, this is the first dungeon available, meant for people that are high teens, early 20s. We went in here with a group spread of between level 18 and 21. Most of us, well, me and the tank were level 18. Went through it just fine, didn't really run into any problems. We wept a couple times due to stupidity on my part, but it's very straightforward. For a dungeon that's, the very first dungeon you run into, I thought this was really well done. It's a fairly straightforward place. Boss mechanics, they're very basic boss mechanics, getting people, introduced to what they're going to be expected to take care of later on as they progress through the game. Very, very basic stuff, but I thought very well done for anyone that was starting out in an MMO and has never really done dungeons before. This is, gets you really started with what to expect later on. But anyways, I thought this was really fun. Like I said, nothing too difficult. You do get some quests, which you can see here. I was trying to take a look, trying to get ready, think of, oh, what am I going to have to do later on? And am I going to get anything good for it? Is it going to be a waste of time? Nah, anyways. This takes a little bit of time for us to get started. Some people went AFK as soon as we started, but, that's fine. Ran in here with 2 guildmates who were gracious enough to come along, and 2 pugs who were also gracious enough to come along, considering it was my first time healing in this game. I am playing a mage, and not only that, a mage healer. If you didn't know, I am more of a melee-oriented player, and as you saw in my previous Rift coverage video, I rolled a dwarf rogue, but after a little while after that video, I decided to re-roll and do something that I wasn't really familiar or comfortable with. So I decided to roll a caster class that was for soloing, main spec, DPS, but for dungeons I wanted to be a healer because it's something I never really have done before. And figured, you know what, let's give it a shot. Let's get out of the comfort chair for a little bit and try something completely new. And let me just say, since I made that change, I freaking love it. The Chloromancer soul is amazing. If you don't know, if you're unfamiliar with it, it is an offensive healing soul, meaning in order to heal people in your group, you actually damage mobs. You're not sitting there spamming heals on everyone. You're actually doing damage in order to heal everyone else. And I think that is really, really awesome. So far, from what I've played with the class, it's really, really fun. It's different. And sometimes it can be tricky, when you're trying to damage mobs and at the same time you need to throw a spot healer on the tank. It can sometimes be tricky because you forget who you're targeting and you forget what you're looking at. I suffer from this thing called tunnel vision, where I'll sit there and just, I'm looking at my hotkeys, I'm looking at my cooldowns, I'm looking at the mob's health, and I'm not really paying attention to, the tank or anyone else's health, which is, bad player in my part, but it's something I've gotten better with. Anyways, going on here, our group is comprised of myself as a healer. We have a tank that is of a warrior calling. I believe he's Reaver spec. I'm not sure if he also has Paladin or whatever his sub-specs are, but just based off of the abilities I've seen him use, it seems he's focused into Reaver. We also have Mantis, who is one of the other guildmates of mine, who is playing a Necrolock, which is what I use when I am not in dungeons, and a very, very awesome, sufficient, really sufficient DPS caster class or specialization. That has very little downtime. I really love it when I'm not doing dungeons. We also have a cleric DPS. Yes, folks, a cleric DPS. They do exist, and they work just fine, despite what many of you believe. This might change later in the game, but right now, it's working just fine. But this is the first time I've ever been in this dungeon. I had watched no videos or done any research on it beforehand. I was coming in completely as a noob. And, even though we did wipe a few times, I thought this group was fairly successful. It did take us quite a while to get through it, but, I had a blast. Anyways, going on here, you can see us just pounding away, see me healing away. You can see all those stopping the meters with all this healing, yeah. You might be watching, anyone that, knows the Chloromancer class will be watching this and be like, oh, this guy's complete rubbish. Look at him. He's not casting the right spells. He's not doing the right priority. Yes, I know. I realized this as I was playing, that I was not doing things 100% efficiently, but, it was my first time healing. Give me a break. Anyways, one question you guys might have, actually, as to why I decided to roll Defiant after I made a Guardian character. A couple things. Lore-wise, I actually prefer the mentality, the mindset, the backstory of the Defiant as opposed to the Guardians, because I find the Guardians to be more toward the religious fanatic kind of thing, and that's really not me. I'm more of a technological person, which is what the Defiant are. So I decided, hey, let's go there. Also, after I got out of the starting area with my Dwarf Rogue, that first area that the Guardians are in, I forget what, I think it's called Silverwood. I hated that place. I think the Guardians have a better, noob zone when you first start, but once you get into the actual, first starting area, I prefer Free March so much more over Silverwood. I can't even tell you why. I just like how Free March is better. I really like the Defiant better, despite their lack of dwarves, but it's okay. I might not have a beard, I might not be stabby, but it is still just okay. Now, if you were looking before when I brought up my spec, you might have seen that it is not the best spec ever for a Chloromancer. Like I said, it was my first time playing. It's going on what I was thinking. The biggest thing there is I spec'd into your healing talents, which is Bloom and I believe Flourish. And you don't really use those as often as I thought I was going to. I use mostly Radiant Spores, Vile Spores, and I think it was Nature's Reach in order to heal the tank who is buffed with Synthesis. But anyways, listening there, you just heard, if you were listening or reading with the chat log in the bottom left, the first boss does a lot of, says a lot of stuff between trash pulls, which, since he does it just about every minute or so, gets kind of annoying until you kill him, and then it's gone, and you're like, thank God! But anyways, continuing on, here, waiting for someone to pat by, and then going on and taking care of business. Withering Vine. Something I found out that I don't have to use as often. There's Nature's Touch. That's what it was. Going on, healing people, keeping up the tank, making them happy, showing them some love, killing some peeps. Pat comes by. That's fine. We got it. This isn't when we wipe. It's later, when I decide to be stupid. But anyways, going on from here. I was trying to think of anything to cover that I haven't covered already with what I think of the game so far. This dungeon, I had a lot of blast. I used to love running dungeons and raids in World of Warcraft, and then I stopped playing just due to time constraints and whatnot, and then picked up this game and couldn't wait to get back in the dungeon grind again. But something new is definitely welcomed. That's one thing I'm loving about this game. It's very familiar, very similar to WoW. But it's different, it's new, and it's awesome. I'm really digging the whole callings and souls and all the different things you can be. And the fact that I can have multiple roles. You can have altogether, I believe, 4 different roles. And, if you get all the different souls, that gives you an endless, more or less an endless combination of things you can be. You can spec for PvP, you can spec for DPS, you can spec for healing, you can spec for tank. You can get all of them, Oh, what class is it that can do all? I believe it is, yeah, clerics. They can tank, they can DPS, they can heal, and they can also, PvP. You can get all 4 of them, which is awesome. It doesn't mean I'm limited to 2 like in other games. But coming up on the first boss here, I believe this guy, whose name is Kaor Ashstone, is very basic tank and spank fight. Nothing really special. The other 2 bosses do have a couple little mechanics. Nothing too bad, but this boss pats right in and is very simple. But we gotta wait for him to pat, so you're gonna see me just bobbing my head back and forth, looking around, not really doing much. I could have chosen to edit this out, but I figured I'd go through just a straight run through so you can see exactly everything that happens, not being like, oh, they cut out all the wipes the guys did. No, you'll see all of our wipes in here. Every time we died, every time I did something stupid, you're gonna see it. Yeah. Now, I've already done footage for next week's episode, which is going to be of the next dungeon, which is Deep Strike Mines. I haven't quite memorized the names, but I do know the initials. DSM, which is the second dungeon available to the Defiant side. The Guardians get their own, their own 2 dungeons. The first one is Realm of the Fae. I don't know what the other one is. That is their equivalent of Deep Strike Mines. But after that, everything is shared by both sides. Well, here's the first boss. You can see he has over 19k health. He does a little AoE thing there, which everyone likes to stand in to make my job a little harder. I think it just slows them, though. I don't think it's anything that bad. But getting him down, casting my spells. Really not a lot of damage going on. It's just a very, very standard boss fight. I almost think it's a mini boss, just because there's really not much going on here. It seems, he doesn't have his own little room. He's kind of walking along this corridor. Very, very simple, very easy fight. Really not healer intensive or tanking intensive. Oh, tank's getting a little low. What am I gonna do, MisterBaz? What are you gonna do? Heal him, bloom him up, bloom him up. Yes, he almost died because I wasn't paying attention. Anyways, drop some chain boots for clerics. Yeah, each of the classes or each of the callings have their own, their own armor sets. So unlike other games where they have multiple classes using the same armor proficiencies, here you have warriors using plate, clerics using chain, rogues using leather, and mages using cloth. So the only people you really have to contend with are people of the same calling, which is awesome. I like that. I like not having a million people using cloth. It is awesome. Anyways, we're going to continue here with some trash in a moment. Our Necrolock is forgetting to use his Sacrifice Life mana ability in order to gain back his wonderful mana. But that's neither here nor there. That's fine. As you can see in my little chat log, he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been warned. I forgot to use one of my class abilities. Yeah, that's fine. We're pulling more trash. Now, this video is gonna get cut off. Unfortunately, this dungeon did take quite a while to do, and I had to cut it up into 5 parts. So this time, since I pre-recorded the footage of the dungeon and did the voice recording afterwards, obviously, since I suffer from tunnel vision, I actually wanted to give you something to look at as I chatted. This will be split up into 5 parts, and this is the first part, and I'll load up the other 2 right after. This time I'm not going to get cut off mid-sentence. I can actually see when this video is going to end, so this is a little bit more professional on my side. But we're going to do more trash pulls here. Nature's Touch, killing mobs. Tank loses aggro to Grimsley. The Warlock Necromancer taking pets. But anyways, this is the first part of episode number 3, doing Iron Tomb, and we'll be back with part number 2 of episode number 3. Very confusing, all these letters and numbers. And we'll be picking up where we left off here.